Hello, everyone. We are ready to start this webinar on managing your sustainability program towards business value. I hope everybody is ready to start. We are also. We are Matthias Faye and Karel van den Bussen. We will be guiding you through this webinar for the next hour. Maybe a short word on introducing ourselves. My name is Matthias. I'm the sustainability lead at Möbius. I'm a management consultant there. And I'm currently responsible for various projects in this domain, ranging from general program implementation to more specific sustainability implementations, normally linked to one of my favorite topics, circular economy. Have a big passion for the technology and healthcare value chain, so working on sustainability in this sector, mainly also for Barco, the company that will be central to this webinar, was a perfect fit. I'm joined for this webinar by Karel van den Bussen, who is a VP Investor Relations at Barco, who is of course also a sustainability enthusiast because he is or was the sponsor for the sustainability program implementation at Barco. Welcome, Karel.
Yes, thank you, Matthias. Pleased to join.
Perfect. Maybe we can start off with some small logistics aspects to this webinar. We will be going through a lot of information, so you might have questions. It's always very handy to put them in the small questions box at your right hand side. So if you have any questions, just put them in there, and we have a few minutes at the end of this webinar to tackle some questions. Also, at the end of this webinar, you will receive a copy of the presentation, and we will also send a short survey along to make sure that we know what you think about the webinar and that we know what we can improve. But maybe to start off the webinar, I can give the word to Karel. Karel will give a short introduction on who Barco actually is, what markets they are in, what activities they have, and also why there was a burning platform on sustainability at the beginning of 2017, and why they actually wanted to deepen their efforts on sustainability. The word is to you, Karel.
Thank you, Matthias. So we're indeed on slide 4. Barco is today an international provider of advanced visualization solutions to customers in the sectors as they are visualized there: entertainment, enterprise, and healthcare. So it has developed from a radio assembly activity founded in 1934 as the Belgian American Radio Corporation. So that's where the acronym Barco comes from. It has now become a fully B2B oriented technology company. Turnover is a bit more than €1 billion with EBITDA margin around 10%. Sustainability has for quite a while been a scattered process with initiatives left and right in the company, not really orchestrated, but with good dynamics with a number of people. And often, I call it sometimes an often debated topic at lunchtime. Um, and actually, at one of those lunch debates, we decided to kick off a club of ambassadors. We're talking 2015 now, to start thinking about bringing together the different and fragmented sustainability efforts, bringing it under a common umbrella. Not very advanced yet at that time, but with the new leadership team in charge, and that's then 2016, we have been able to move to shift the strategic focus of the company and to also advance the efforts towards sustainability. Um, in the letter of the CEO in 2000, let's say in the annual report 2016, so early 2017, he openly articulated the ambition to start working on a program to go for sustainability leadership position within the foreseeable future. And so that's where for the first time in our more recent history, we had, let's say, the full support of the leader of the company to move ahead with a sustainability program, and was then also, let's say, the kickoff of bringing in Möbius as a kind of expert consultant, to really advance on our sustainability ambitions. Moving to slide 5. Um, so doing a first bit of analysis on running a successful sustainability program, um, we quickly learned that actually only 10% of operational excellence implementations meet or exceed expectations, and changes hard. And actually, sustainability changes even harder. And so there we're not talking about 10%, we're talking about 2%, and that's also confirmed in the Bain study. And the main reasons being that it's often seen, perceived, or received in the company as a kind of mandatory topic to the business, without clear return on investment, and sometimes even um, yeah, contra-intuitive towards the current and conventional business logic in the company. And so that's also the reason why a lot of organizations start to manage sustainability programs in a different way than organizational change programs. My question is, of course, why should that be the case? Huh? And related to that first question, the 4 key drivers to a successful program, according to many studies and literature, uh, none of the 4 drivers are rocket science. It's the kind of program or basic program management practices. They're not necessarily trivial, often overlooked as well in the present preparation and implementation of a sustainability program. And so it's about first building a clear strategy, linked to the core business. Next to that, defining tangible objectives, tangible targets, so that the so-called SMART targets, make them measurable, make them tangible as well. Bring this into the roadmaps of the teams is then part 3. So making them part of business practices, almost day-to-day business practices, so that the teams within the business can work towards those objectives, and be part of the roadmap, with their buy-in. And then the fourth one, not necessarily the least one, is also ensuring that there is a broad leadership coalition. So this is really about leadership, it's about culture. So this is a must, to get the buy-in of leaders, to get their involvement in defining the goals and in supporting the roadmaps.
Yeah. Maybe I can add to this, Karel. The statistic that you mentioned at the beginning, I think this is a very eye-opening statistic. If you look at normal lean program management implementations that also have a big change management component, we see that the success rate there of implementation is much higher than sustainability programs. And we feel that this 2% is explained because sustainability programs are simply not managed as a sustainability program. They're managed as a topic in the periphery of the business, while the normal program management principles do apply here and must be applied here. That's why we chose to reiterate a bit on these 4 principles that are very important for us, and we also decided to make them a bit of the agenda of this webinar. We've translated these 4 key program management pillars into 3 quests for you that we would like to walk you through. We have quest number one, sustainability strategy and metrics. How do you go about? Quest number 2, the big challenge of hardwiring sustainability into your current decision making, which is and was also a big challenge for Barco. And we would like to finish with a topic on how do you govern sustainability within your organization, and of course give you some key takeaways to quickly implement and to start in your own organization. Maybe Karel, I can give the first quest to you, talking about sustainability strategy and metrics. Maybe you can give us a quick view on why you think sustainability strategy is important in a well-managed sustainability program, and how we try to fill this in at Barco.
Yeah. So that's slide 7. Um, yeah, like I think in any other program, focus is really needed, is important, and in order to keep that focus on a number of domains for our sustainability program, we started with the exercise to identify a limited number of key domains, because yeah, sustainability is a very broad topic. And so limiting the number of key domains in a way that they link uh, to the material challenges of our business and of our organization. Um, and after a careful and thoughtful assessment, a process of also putting priorities on the different aspects, including some benchmarking as well. We selected 3 pillars. Again, I think commonly known as planet, people, communities. Um, but then on a layer, on let's say one layer down, we also started to make that a more narrow definition. And so for planet, for us, it's about reducing the environmental impact. On people, it's about encouraging sustainable employability in our own organization, but also in the full value chain. And then on communities, it's to ensure that we apply the highest business ethical business standards, sorry, in the way we do business, and then also putting effort in making the communities around us thrive. Um, in order to make those domains more tangible and allow target definition, we have to also go one level deeper and become more specific on how we will be doing this. And so that's the question number 2. If I drill down on the first one, on planet, so there we decided on question number 2 to focus on reducing the greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon footprint of the products that we put into the field. And so really work towards targets. We'll come back to target definition a bit further down in the presentation. But that was one area on which we decided to work, but then also on the footprint of our own operations, including our infrastructure, our logistics, supply chain, and also our mobility. So that's a bit for me what I wanted to share on question 1 and 2 here.
Yeah, maybe I can add to that the sustainability strategy on a high level, planet, people, communities, is not really different from other companies or other value chains. It could easily be a textiles company or a food company here, but we do think that how you will be implementing your sustainability strategy and the specific topics that you will focus on, there you will of course see a lot of variation between different companies. So for me, on the level how we will be doing it, there the power lies in selecting the right topics to focus on for your value chain and for your environment. That's why I would like to maybe add 2 things on sustainability strategy here. For me, before even knowing what you will be doing or how you will be doing it, it's more important to know why you will be doing it. So that's for me question number 3, which I will tackle shortly. And in the end, when you know what you will be doing, also make sure that you have a good system to make sure that you measure how you're achieving your goals. But let me put that a bit in perspective. Question number 3, why you will be doing it. For me, it's important because there are a lot of sustainability items to focus on, even in the planet domain. It's important to pick your battles a bit. Pick your battles. Let me give a few examples. I think for every sustainability topic, you have to make a clear case on why it should be interesting for your senior leadership to invest in this item. For example, greenhouse gas emissions. Greenhouse gas emissions is an important topic within Barco. But more specifically, the greenhouse gas emissions of the logistics domain is very important. Let me give an example. For example, the supply chain, the logistics supply chain of Barco is quite carbon intensive. They're a global producer of visualization systems. They have to manage short customer lead times, so we see a lot of air transportation taking place there. So we see that the carbon intensity of the supply chain is quite high, but we also see in the environment, and you can also see it in the little graph on your left-hand side, that one of the only sectors that isn't coping with its carbon emission reduction targets is the transportation sector. So, for example, for this little topic, we were able to make a very strong internal and external case why Barco should focus on this topic. And that's also why we are able to capture the attention of the senior leadership team there. So, knowing why we will be tackling greenhouse gas emissions in the logistics part is very, very important. Maybe another example on this is on the left hand side on the bottom. One of the topics in our sustainability strategy was also focusing more on sustainable product design and circular economy. Of course, we also wanted to make the case for that. Why should the senior leadership team invest money in this? It's quite simple to explain with a short example. In every company that makes electrical and electronic products, there has been a very important emphasis on introducing energy efficiency standards for these products. But we see that in the future also as Barco that we will be confronted with a lot of other different product standards in the future. Product standards that will be focusing more on material efficiency than on energy efficiency. So we saw that the topic of circular economy, increasing the upgradability, the repairability, the reusability, also the lifetime of your products is becoming more and more important. So Barco chose to also include this topic in their sustainability strategy because we saw a clear case that the external environment and a lot of stakeholders will be putting pressure and will be asking questions. But we also saw that, of course, the technology value chain is prone to circular economy business models and can tap into value. So we are able to make for different sustainability items in our sustainability strategy, we were able to make an internal and external case to capture the attention of the senior leadership team. I think that's very important to know that the differentiation in your sustainability strategy does not lie on the planet, people, community domain, but really lies in what specific topics you choose to fill this in. I think that's one of the most important learnings there. Question number 4 is actually making sure when you select a number of topics that you also have a good measurement system to measure how you are improving on these topics. And maybe, Karel, I can give the word to you again, because during the project you always emphasize a lot how important metrics are for you. So maybe you can shed some light on this for us.
And let's say that's a continuous effort still today. But indeed, I believe this is key. I think we already explained this why in making the sustainability programs successful, that this is a key component. It's also a key, it has shown to be a key instrument to get our teams more mobilized, more active around those topics. And once you're able to start to show metrics, to start to show objectives, and that's then a way to start to create buy-in and create the right dynamics. So here on this slide 9, it is about our ambitions on the planet, on the domain planet. So as I shared before, we decided to start to measure the greenhouse gas emissions, in our case as of 2014, and this has shown to be the base and is now defined also as the baseline to articulate our ambitions for the future. So on the first line, We actually hint to the carbon footprint of our operations. So if you take a closer look to the extract of our sustainability report, referencing the Planet Key Performance Indicators. So on the first line, you have actually um, our ambitions and our measurement around carbon footprint, and the ambition to lower that for our operations by 20% by 2020. On the third line, happy to point also to our ambition to decrease the footprint of our product by 25%. We have put an annual measurement in system since 2014, 2015, so we can now track our progress towards those ambitions, see whether we are moving closer, whether we need to accelerate, whether we need to push a bit more on one or the other contributor towards those aspired levels. And so again, I mean, a key topic remains to keep the team focused, to keep the team supportive, to provide the data. Not always easy. It's not just rolling out of the system. So there is manual work involved. We try to optimize the process, but again, that's work in progress. Also, an area in which we feel to keep the teams motivated in the right spirit, where both internal and external communication on the results seems to be very helpful. And so that's again where having a report like the sustainability report showing the KPIs, showing the progress, shows to be quite instrumental. And then, of course, internally, we need to take this kind of high level information a couple of layers deeper, translate that towards the respective teams to really show how they can work on their part of that big kind of Barco carbon footprint. So that's a bit the way how we work and how we wanna work on continued progress towards
Yeah,
those ambitions.
yeah. I think in parallel we try to work a lot on sustainability strategy and metrics, try to choose our battles well and try to measure our battles well. But I think in parallel we also worked on starting to hardwire sustainability within the Barco organization. That's mainly quest number two. And I choose my words carefully here because I deliberately put hardwiring sustainability and not implementing sustainability. Um, because I think this is a very important word for us. It's very easy to not make the sustainability decision within your company and choose the left way instead of the right way. Or put it in other words, I think it's very important when you look at a sustainability program that you try to hardwire the right decisions. And what do I mean with hardwiring? It means making sure that you can make sustainability decisions based on objective information and that you have processes and systems in place that are able to give you that objective information. For me, it's important that almost any function in the company and independent of the person that occupies that function should be able to make the right or wrong decision. That's what I mean with hardwiring. It can be a bit intangible, but let me give some examples. And that's why we chose to give you these three examples on how we tilted these three processes towards sustainability. Maybe, Karel, you can give a short introduction on why we chose these processes and what we actually wanted to do, and then later I can go into a bit more detail and give some examples.
Yeah. So indeed, it's a selection of three business critical processes closely related to the value chain of the company. And so we have a lot of inbound and outbound logistics. So supply chain management is really quite important. And yeah, the footprint of emissions is material. Shipping components towards Barco, in which we have a kind of advanced assembly activity, and then also shipping it sometimes in batch, sometimes product by product towards end customers. And so the first one, supply chain management. Um, a more the more challenging one is then also on product development. It starts with yeah uh, writing the right concept around the product. How can we then also increase the environmental impact, including energy efficiency um, of the product portfolio, and step by step move to a greener product portfolio. And third one, a very important one towards the future. How can we make sure that we stay in the market? How can we identify and implement opportunities in the circular domain across products, across divisions, um, and then also implement the right business models to in the end create business value. Maybe just closing on the selection
Yeah.
of the three, I think it's fair to say that, and you will also see it in the slides, we are more mature as a company in developing sustainability on the first one, on supply chain management, with more tangible results. Uh, Still work in progress on the two other domains, both on product development and on circular economy. Matthias, you
Yeah.
take over here.
Yeah, we also chose these business critical processes because in one way or another, these will also be processes that will be running in your organization. They're quite general processes. So for I will tackle them one by one, and the main focus is how can we inject information, tools, support in any of these processes to make sure that you can take quick first steps in these domains. Let me maybe make it tangible for you on maybe on supply chain management first. The biggest challenge was there to make sure that we get carbon reduction embedded into the mind of the supply chain manager because we had a quite carbon intensive supply chain there at Barco. So for us, it was very important to make sure that we could start this part and that we had at least an initial roadmap of initiatives that would reduce the carbon intensity of our supply chain. For me, it was a quite interesting exercise because there were two parts. On the left side, I think it's very interesting to already map the supply chain network from a carbon point of view. You will see that in basically any company, a supply chain manager has a very good view on how his network, on what his network looks like from a cost or an inventory perspective. And basically, a lot of optimizations are done there. But mapping the network from a carbon perspective, from an emissions perspective, can shed another light on the story and can open up insight towards other optimizations. Knowing where the carbon is in your supply chain, on which lane, from which country to which country, in which division, which product line is being transported on that lane, what is the modal shift on that lane, having a lot of predictability in the demand for that product or not. These are important parameters to know to make sure that you can have a sound mapping of your supply chain from a carbon perspective. Because it's only when you know very well how your network behaves from a logistics emissions perspective that you know what measures to apply. And that's what we see on the right hand side. There is a map of standard carbon reduction measures. There's basically a menu of what you can do to reduce the carbon intensity of your logistics. And the challenge is to choose the right measure and apply it in the right place to make sure that you can make your initial roadmap. Um, Standard carbon reduction measures are fairly known. You can either eliminate the miles transported by onshoring or local sourcing or localizing some repair activities. You can optimize your transportation by dematerializing your product, for example, by focusing on weight or volume reduction. Or in the end, you can even decarbonize when you cannot avoid transportation. Make sure you do it in the most sustainable way. I think the biggest challenge is to map the right carbon reduction measure on the right spot in your supply chain, and then you're good to go with an initial roadmap. I think that's for me step number one. That's also the first step that we did. But hard wiring, of course, means going further. It means making sure that any supply chain manager in day-to-day business decisions can also incorporate sustainability in that. And for me, there are two big things to make sure that sustainability managers can do that, that supply chain managers can do that, and the sustainability manager can play an important role there. For me, the first thing is making sure that any supply chain manager can do a carbon calculation himself to make sure that we can separate initiatives that have a big carbon impact from initiatives that have a small carbon impact. And it also makes the effect of certain standard measures very, very tangible. So making sure that any supply chain manager has a good tool in place to make quick carbon calculations is one of the best things to hardwire sustainability decisions within your organization. Of course, once we know how much carbon a certain measure can save, I think we're at a point in time where supply chain managers are very cost driven, very dollar driven, I would say. So making sure that we can translate any carbon calculation at tons of CO2 saved to a number of euros saved is always it speaks very well to supply chain managers, and it also opens up for them to include carbon into their business case. And there are a lot of great tools available online, carbon pricing mechanisms that can help you to convert tons of CO2 carbon to a monetized impact. I won't go into too much detail on this because we had a webinar on this a few months ago. So I'm happy to refer to our past webinar on how to build a roadmap towards supply chain sustainability. Um, maybe to maybe advance a bit on product development. I would like to also give a short view on what first steps can be there and what for me critical steps are to make sure that we can also hardwire the right decisions in product development there. The main question is how can we increase the environmental performance of our product portfolio? And as you know, Barco is mainly producing electrical and electronic products. For me, again, two things. On the left side, when you want to adapt or tilt your product development processes, I think you need a solid, sustainable portfolio management. It's a complex term for something that's also quite easy to explain, and you have a good area of well working examples there already. One of the pioneer sectors there is the chemical industry. You have the sustainable portfolio management method of Solvay. You have the solution steering method of BASF. All these sustainable portfolio management systems try to achieve the same objective. The first thing you need is making sure you have an objective measurement methodology to make sure that you can measure the environmental performance of individual products. And that's also the first thing we try to develop within Barco, making sure that for any product development, we could put a score on there to make sure that we could assess the environmental performance of that individual product. And it's basically very comparable to when you buy a washing machine. Then you can also choose based on the energy efficiency index on that appliance. We also did the same, but more holistically, because we also know that next to energy, also the material use, the product weight, recycled materials, toxic substances is important. Also the packaging. And in the end, one of the hardest to quantify dimensions is the end of life optimization. How durable is our product? How easy to maintain is it? How modular is it? So what's the circular economy potential of that product? So the first thing we did was try to come up with a methodology that would help us to classify products into different buckets to see how we were doing, which is the objective measurement methodology. Once we know how we are doing, we of course also need a target on where we want to get to. So a good portfolio target is also important there, I think. And one of the best examples I've seen there is Philips, is an important customer of Barco too. They have a portfolio target, I think, of around 50% of revenue has to come from green products within the next 5 years, I think, where they define green products as a product with a minimal energy performance and with certain circular economy characteristics. So that kind of target is very important to steer your portfolio management, I think. When we take a little bit more a look on the right side, once we know how our products are doing and when we have a target to improve, I think it's also important to work with different critical functions within your product development process, product management, R&D, designers, to make sure that they also have the right tools to improve. You cannot just put a metric on top of someone's head and ask him to improve or ask her to improve. I think it's important to make sure that you can inject the right tools into your product development processes to make sure that people can also improve the environmental performance of their products. And I think you have a lot of different tools, and of course you have to make sure that you use the right tool for the right objective. I think there are a lot of tools already available on the market. They're online, open source. You have Vovam's equalizer, you have Vito Circulator, you have a very comprehensible RESCOM toolset of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. You have the EcoDesign pilot tool of the University of Vienna. All low threshold tools that can help you to build knowledge within your product development community, how to make sure that you can let a product advance from, let's say, a C to a A, for example. And these were kind of the two tracks that we worked on a lot with Embarco. Try to put in place an objective measurement methodology, a good target, and also start to include a supportive tool set for designers to improve. Right. So that's in a nutshell how we try to tackle that part. Of course, product development is very, very linked to the circular economy. Circular economy, one of my favorite topics. In Barco, we also know that there were a lot of external pressure pushing us towards a circular economy. One of them were product standards, but we also see that there were some buckets of value, market value that could be gained by implementing a circular economy. Maybe Karel, you can shed some light on why you think for Barco's circular economy it was an important topic, and then we can go to a little bit more detail on how we tackled it there.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll start also from a personal note. I think over time, circular will become important for essentially all industries. Um, it's happening in B2C context. It's happening in some niche segments today in the B2B environment. We have some examples on the slide here. And in all of these situations and those companies, these applications are considered to be front running. If we say front running, it means also that we expect them to become more mainstream. And so getting the experience as a pioneering company, yeah, puts you in a kind of pole position. Um, Now, from a Barco perspective, circular economy is interesting from a number of perspectives. On the one hand, there is indeed the push from regulation, and we expect that to strengthen in the coming years. There is the push from a first set of customers, still limited though, um, to more and more reuse, make sure that the products are repairable, and even consider remanufacturing. So that's the kind of, yeah, a position in which we try to be as reactive as possible towards the demand in the market and the push in the market. Um, from a more proactive perspective, electric and technology equipment, they typically have um, a good to um, quite strong rest value. At the end of the economic lifetime, after the consumer has come to end of life, the device is there are still components within the device with a technical lifetime that can be reused. Uh, the product can be remanufactured. Also, parts harvesting is an option here. But then moving in the more closer loops and refurbishing and servicing, I think what you really win there is the much closer relationship to the customer compared to the today's default model, at least default model for Barco. So we're now in a more conventional model where we sell a product, at best a maintenance contract, and then essentially the relationship stops till the end of the lifetime, which might be 6, 8, 10, or 12 years later, till we come back with the next generation product. Um, Moving into a service and equipment sharing or product as a service kind of business model uh, puts you in a position which is much more, creates a much more intense relationship with the customer. Um, it is done in line with our tagline. It's more about assuring the outcomes of the products. Um, and as such, it triggers new interesting business models, which on themselves then drive towards a more predictable recurring revenue stream, also typically with a better margin
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
providing the service.
Well, I think I can add there is once we linked the circular economy to one of the most important strategic levers for Barco the coming years, transforming from a hardware to a software and services company. I think it's then when we got the attention of the senior leadership team, when we were able to link the advantages of a circular economy models can put more could put a bigger profit lever under a services model. Once we put that option on the table, I think we got a lot of attention. So linking circular economy to a strategic point, mainly offering services and not only a product, and also shedding some light on the profit potential of certain circular economy business models. It's then when we got more traction in the organization. Apart from that, I think circular economy is a very big topic to tackle for any organization. So we try to get our first steps there and try to chop up the elephant a bit. The first thing we did is purely trying to increase the knowledge on circular economy within our organization. Learning from pioneers and success stories. You have a good area of success stories out there. Making sure you draw those people into your organization. Make sure you put the right people in the right room with the right pioneer, so they can ask their questions and they can be reassured of the success that the circular economy business model can have. And there you have to look for examples that fit your value chain the most. We learned a lot from Agfa, from Philips, from Mitsubishi, companies that are very close to our value chain. I think one of the things that was also interesting there was trying to make sure that your key decision makers, product managers, strategic marketeers can also experience circular economy. And there I think Vito's risk and race game, which makes you really experience circular economy, is always a good card to play, I think. So number one is purely on awareness and on knowledge. I think number two is getting to grips with building experiments and pilot cases as fast as possible, to make sure that you can build a case for the circular economy within your organization based on a tangible case for your organization. If not, the not invented here syndrome will be at play within your organization. I think when you want to identify pilot cases, you have two directions to go. I think the first one is trying to reason from markets and business models is the most effective one. What I mean with that, an example is, for example, trying to reason, okay, where do I have an end of life cycle product, where I don't have a successor of that product, and maybe a remanufactured product can fill its place. Where is there a market need for a circular economy business model? Or asking the question, where is my customer more increasingly asking for a service rather than a product, which is a model that we see popping up in our entertainment industry, in the cinema industry, for example. So that's one way to go, trying to reason from the customer, from the market. But Barco also has a very big current installed base. There is a lot of value currently deployed. So I think it's always also good to scan the current installed base to look for certain circular opportunities. like refurbishment or parts harvesting. So for me, when starting a circular economy program within an organization, I think first of all knowledge, and second of all experience with pilot cases is the most important thing to get started. Okay, let's maybe round this hardwiring sustainability part up. We do have some minutes left for you, Karel, to walk us through quest number 3. You always put a lot of emphasis on having the right governance structure on sustainability. Maybe in 2 words you can explain that and how we tackle that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did. I think putting a governance structure in place is also of key importance. But maybe before diving into the governance that we have put in place, I also want to emphasize on the fact that in the end, or let's say so far, what we have seen, those domains in which we made most progress, the difference is being made by people. So people who are genuinely interested in the topic, who are in the right position, sometimes also incentivized on those topics by managers who are embracing the sustainability ambitions. So that's already part of the governance structure. Is I try to keep in the back of your mind who is responsible for what, and getting the right people, let's say, in the right function is already a key takeaway here. So what we did is we put indeed a sustainability office or sustainability program office in place. We kicked it off with the help of Möbius. Happy to share that we now have a full-time equivalent Barco person in place to monitor, coordinate, and assure the progress, and also I very much insist on creating accountability within the organization. Um, the sustainability office reports then to what we call the Executive Sustainability Steerco, which is actually a subset of Barco's executive team. And the Exec Steerco comes together 4 or 5 times a year. It's a platform where we report on progress, in which we also can escalate certain topics if needed, and where we can make the key decisions. So that's, let's say, the kind of sustainability board within the company, you could say. We also work with an ambassador meeting, which are then which is then staffed with representatives of essentially all departments of the company, representatives that are also asked to kind of evangelize the sustainability messages within their department. And so it's a platform to bring all stakeholders together to share information, so to get everyone kind of up to date on the latest evolutions. And then let's say on top you have also the core leadership team of Barco, so that's then the executive management team, where we report once or 2 times a year, and then board of directors. That's essentially the audit committee today. But we would be welcoming more questions from the board, but I expect that to come also in the coming years as a kind of fixed topic on the agenda. Voilà. That's it for my part, Matthias. Not sure whether you want to take over to close or to move into the questions.
Sure. So I think we do have some minutes to spare. We have some 10 minutes left, and some questions have been coming in. Let's see which one we will try to tackle first. One of the questions was, who did you try to convince of the added value of circular economy, and how did you do it? Maybe it's good that I would shed some light on this one. So the question is what specific functions or profiles did you try to convince of the power of circular economy, and what were the the tools or the things that you did to convince them.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think we can break this down into some building blocks. When you look at a circular economy model, there are three or four building blocks that are very important. First of all, I think working from the business model out is very important. So there we know that we had some critical functions that we really needed to influence and really get into their head. For Barco and for me, those were the product managers and the strategic marketeers who were responsible for the strategic direction of a certain division and also for what specific products are being put on the market. So those were for me, from a business model perspective, very important functions to really immerse. And also there's a very specific profile at Barco, which is a services product manager. So that was also a very important function for me. I think getting these people in the right room with the right influencer, with the right success case is important. Secondly, in any business model, I think also that product design plays a very important role. And of course, in product design, we have designers and R&D engineers and NPI project managers who are the biggest parties for me to influence there. Um, I think one of the best things that one of the most powerful things there that we did was organize a workshop on sustainable product development organized by Philips, which is of course also one of the biggest customers of Barco. So that's always that was a workshop and also a name that resonated within Barco. And last but not least, I think that any circular business model is supported by the right operational model, so the right logistics model and the right really operations model. So involving the people from logistics and not to forget operations, because a remanufacturing, a refurbishment operation has a big impact on operations, was also important. I think for me those were the biggest building blocks of any circular model and also the most important parties that are involved there. So maybe go to the second question. We have a question on what were exactly the drivers of senior management support. What were the actual things that pushed you towards investing more in sustainability? Was it the customer demand? Was it the regulator that was pushing standards? Was it something that the senior management wanted to do themselves from an internal motivation? What was it? Maybe, Karel, that's one for you to tackle. What were the biggest
Yeah.
driver of senior management to give their support to the program?
But maybe I'll take the question in two parts. So in terms of drivers, we also recently did a survey on how do we as a company feel about sustainability. Um, and we see it that customer demand is definitely not in the top three. So it's not that it is the customers today who are driving our program on sustainability. If you ask, however, to the people who have touch points with customers, whether they believe that sustainability will be a more important topic for our customers in 3, 4, 5 years from now, well, most of them tend to agree. So I think it's also a question of, yeah, creating the right context for the question, because if it will be a key topic for our customers in 4 or 5 years from now, yeah, that are the products that we are developing in R&D today. So that are the things that we try to, yeah, to frame the questions in the right context, first of all. Um, a bit more demand from investors, and that's also one of the reasons why sustainability is, let's say, a program which is now managed within, or let's say, aside from the investor relations office, um, we see an increased demand from both the sell side and the buy side in the financial community on reporting and explaining what we exactly do on sustainability. So that's a good push. Um, but then in terms of the third stakeholder and probably the most important stakeholder is our own employees. So as we are recruiting people, younger people, skilled people, we see that efforts around sustainability are indeed a differentiator in that recruiting competitive landscape. And so yeah, people do ask questions about greener mobility. They do ask questions about working in an environment which is less carbon intensive than what the conventional, let's say, context would be. And so that's definitely one that we know, that we understand, and that we also use as a driver. And then the first part of the question was about, okay, what changed the support in senior leadership? Well, I think we kind of in the years before 2017, we were already working with a couple of people in the executive team to get them on board, to get their buy-in in that ambassador meeting that I mentioned. But it got clearly an acceleration since the new CEO came in, a younger CEO than the former CEO. Um, so that definitely helps. I think generations have an impact on how they think about sustainability and the impact they can make. Also coming in from a larger corporate organization with a full staffed sustainability office. So yeah, he came in with a certain expectation around sustainability, and was then also the driving factor to make sustainability an essential part of the strategic story of the company.
Okay. I think that was we do have some other questions coming in, but we don't have the time to tackle all of them. So I am able to return to these questions one-on-one after the webinar, because I would like to conclude maybe with some key takeaways on this webinar. For me, the most important things to take away are the fact that when you look at sustainability program management, we don't really see a reason why a sustainability program should be managed different than any other change management program. If we compare it with operational excellence implementations, they also have a clear strategy and targets. They also have a clear roadmap linked to the core value chain, and they also have the support of a guiding leadership coalition. So I think making sure that you have the right basic program management principles in place can already increase the success rate of your sustainability program from 2 to 10%. I think also making sure before implementing that you have a good view on what's the limited set of sustainability items that you want to focus on, because this has the advantage that you can focus your effort. Plus, if you have a good quantitative case of a limited set of sustainability items, then it's very easy to make the case, also for senior leadership or for critical non-believers, to make sure that you also have their support. We took a lot of time to go over 3 important processes and systems, to give you a view on what for us the most important first steps were to start to hardwire sustainability into day-to-day decisions. I think for me is building insight, and giving the right tools to the right person is key there. And in the end, we rounded off with making sure that you have a right governance structure to steer the program, to tackle the right problem in the right place, to force the right decision in the right place, and to also report the right progress in the right place. And for me, these were the four main takeaways of the trajectory we worked on with Barco. I think we had all our time, so I would like to thank you for participating in this webinar. We hope to have answered a lot of your questions or uncertainties. And when there are other questions, don't hesitate to pick up contact one-on-one, and we can discuss further. Karel, I want to thank you for your assistance and for your insights.
Very welcome.
And also thanks, no problem. And also thanks to all of you for listening. Hope to talk to you soon. Bye bye.